Hey everybody, my room's a mess and I'm running on ceviche and chocolate, so it's going to suck today. Anyway, we're going to be discussing another prompt. There's going to be no images or anything with that. We're just going to have a big talk today, alright? So, we spent the last several weeks exploring the operation principles and action types of firearms, as well as learning about their components, their families, feeding mechanisms such as belts, links, and magazines and clips designs. So this week we're going to be discussing the equivalent and the importance and the fundamental knowledge of firearm hobbyists and professionals by answering this question. So, based on yours truly, observations and predictions, do I need to research? My apologies. So, is knowledge of firearm theory important in repair and service and customizations and sales of firearms? Or is it sufficient enough for me to just know the how-tos? So, first we're going to break down the separation of those two. So the how-tos would be such as, let's say, you're a first-time owner of a weapon, may it be an AR or anything under the sun nowadays, to have a standard Picatinny or M-LOK rail. And you're like, alright, cool, I would like to have a grip or a sight that corresponds with that attachment platform. So you go on YouTube and you decide to just look up, how do I mount a foregrip on my rifle? Cool. That's the basic how-tos. That's how you do it. Now, the firearms theory is the concept of understanding what a thing does, or the broad perspective of how the firearms generally work and what's going on inside of them. So, a good thing behind that is, let's say we have a gas-operated AR, right? And you are experiencing short stroking, stovepipes, and failures to extract and eject. Alright, so while you're bumming around trying to figure out what's going on there or what's wrong, you're just throwing everything at the wall to just buy a bunch of parts and just swapping them out all willy-nilly until you finally make it work. That's the how-to perspective. Firearms theory would be for someone that's familiar with the firearm to the extent that they can diagnose a broad perspective of problems with that platform or other platforms to see a connective coalition or similarities within those problems. You could have someone that's very fond with AKs and they're commonly messing around testing out suppressors or subsonic ammunitions to figure out how well that gas will work. Your buddy comes up to you on the range and you're like, hey big dog, I see that you're experiencing the fact that your gun is unable to extract or eject properly or have the ability to just gun, alright? So he walks over and he's like, hey, I think it's your gas port. If not, you're probably running the wrong kind of gas key with that. Otherwise, you're not shooting hot enough ammunition. Here, I have some M855 instead of having to use that cheap, chintzy $5 for a box of 20 can barely shoot its own self. If you light it on fire, it won't even detonate. 223. You put that in and the gun's running smooth as rain. Intentionally the way it's bought, just the way you want it. Just to the perspective that he's familiar with the idea that if your powder's not burning hot enough or fast enough, and otherwise it's burning too hot or too much, that a weapon will operate like this. I believe that in the realm of gunsmithing or any kind of thing to where you have to diagnose problems, understanding how the general broad spectrum of it works and having the idea of how that big picture look operates allows you to have a better in-tuned idea of what's going on. You could take a diesel mechanic that's been working on 18-wheelers for his entire life. Next you know, you pull up with your Honda Civic and you're like, hey, John, my car's sounding wonky, it's doing something weird. He's like, hey, start it up. Walks over, listens to it, is like, yo, you got a cylinder misfiring. Hey, let me take a look at your spark plugs or something. And he's like, oh, well, that's why your spark plug is no longer sparking. Right now it's just a plug. Due to his familiarity with a combustion engine, he has the general knowledge of what certain problems might look like in slightly different variations. To where it's like you see, I see this sometimes when I'll watch videos of Browning 50 cals firing, where you'll see the video of someone trying to shoot the 50 cal and it's just doing one round at a time. It takes the machine gun and decides to turn itself into a big fancy almost 100-pound bolt action weapon. And it's like, oh, your timing's most likely messed up, otherwise you got some kind of linkage or something messed up in there, or hey, double check your head spacing. Just from the ability to hear how the weapon sounds. Otherwise, it's, hey, your shots are generally going in circles. I know when I do that, I'm most likely staring at the target and not paying attention to my reticle. To generally know what the things are in your field of specialty, even though it's more broad, just allows you to fluctuate and move and flow with it. There's nothing wrong with the fact of, hey, I'm just going to get this thing, I'm just going to get it to where it works, and I'm not going to bat an eye and just go with it for the rest of my life. You do you, dude. Do what you need to do, have it work with that. But if you want to be major into the field to where it's like you own a lot of firearms and you're generally a hobbyist, cool. It's going to be a tool in your toolbox, helps it work. But if you are going to be an armorer, a custodian, a gunsmith, or someone that wants to rant and rave in the comment section of, I don't know, a Garantham video, know what's going on outside the room. You don't have to know what's going on in the next neighborhood, just know what's going on your block. It's like you can ask an electrician basic things that go to the broad perspective, and it's like, oh, I kind of know what's going on there because I see it a lot and I ask questions. Cool. You can generally ask the mechanic that works for Ford, hey bro, my Chevy over here is acting a little wonky, what do you think it is, before I spend all this money on here to just diagnose the problem. It just comes down to, if you want to actually be proficient in the idea of firearms and their theories and generally what's going on there, then you should have just a general curiosity of this. Like, I've come across situations where people just don't know what's going on because they rather sit there and watch random YouTube videos of people pulling pranks on one another, and they go to the shooting range, next thing you know, they have no idea what's going on. And then you got the one dude that decides to show up with, I don't know, a random Ruger 1022 who's been watching Ian from Forgotten Weapons for like the past 3 months straight, walk over to someone and it's like, hey, this is what's wrong with your gun. And he's like, how do you know that? Well, it's similar to the problem that comes with the, I don't know, the Type 420 da-da-da that came out from 1963 to 1997 or something. Just understanding that broad, big picture capability allows you to be a lot more fluent and have the ability to back up your theory with things that happened before. All right. Teddy Roosevelt said, the more you understand and know about the past, the better you can predict the future. All right. And it helps if you understand and have the ability to curve those problems when you notice those things are coming up. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm sorry it's not visually exciting. You guys can go play Angry Birds or whatever crappy mobile game decided to pop up as an ad before this video. Anyway, same things apply. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Never point your weapon at anything you not intend to shoot. Keep your fingers straight off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Keep your weapon on safe until you intend to fire. Know your target lies beyond and in between. Please stay safe. Hey, the things in my description of my videos might not apply to you, but they might apply to someone you know. So if you see that they're struggling, send it to them. Love y'all. Be safe. Goodbye.
Welcome to Dan Doc's channel. Oh yeah, welcome to Dan Doc's channel.